Hey everyone, welcome back to Quest Like a Pro. I'm Noah Barnett, the founder of Purple Shadow Gaming, and joined as always by my co-host. Hey Andy, how's it going?
Hey Noah, I'm doing great. Very excited for this one because it's a local of ours.
It is a local indeed. And if you're tuning in for the first time, Quest Like a Pro is all about diving into the how of competitive Lorcana, breaking down the strategies, training, and mindset of the best players in the game so you can level up your own play. And today, we've got a guest who's been a top player not only in our local Arizona scene, yet within the broader North American Lorcana pro scene. From winning local tournaments, day-2ing DLCs, and qualifying for the North American Continentals, this pro is a rock star. And overall, good people, I think. Maybe. We're not sure. He's also a newly minted member of the Ink Thieves team, and their insights are really fire. There it is, Ink Thieves. They do incredible content, so definitely check out their YouTube channel for all their content, and we'll include that in the show notes or the description if you're watching this on YouTube. We're going to be diving deep into how TheDave approaches deck building, playtesting, and high-pressure tournament moments. Dave, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
Going great. Super pumped to be here. We'll find out if I'm good people or not. That's, I don't even know, so...
We do have to find out if you're good people, and we're going to let everyone vote with their comments by leaving a comment. It always helps people find the show, and it's just fun. We even had someone call me out in the comments recently about hating on Bell. I was wrong. I'm admitting on this podcast, Bell is good people. Now let's see if TheDave is good people. We can't kick off without mentioning your tag, TheDave. It's bold. How do you feel about other Daves, or a Dave, as I like to refer them?
I feel like Daves in general are good people, I'm very pro Dave, but yeah, there's only one TheDave, so I gotta do my best to represent,
Is there like a backstory, or were you just like one day like, is this available? And it was.
There is a backstory. No, I was in a group with a Dave, and there had to be a differentiation, and I was like, we can't have two Daves, that's ridiculous. And I will admit, to this day, it's unclear if I made myself the nickname or if somebody else did it, but in that moment, I became TheDave, and it's awesome. I really don't like online monikers, not a big fan of gamer tags, they're fun, but, I'm Dave. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm not a different person or a different personality, so.
Not just Dave, TheDave specifically. I love that. I have 3 boys, and our oldest son's name is Luke, as you all know. And my middle son has a friend named Luke. And so they call his friend OG Luke.
OG Luke.
And then my son Luke is just Luke. So I was
Fair
like,
enough.
if you ever want to change your name from TheDave to
OG
something
Dave.
different, you could be OG Dave.
I don't hate it.
Just
it
think
at all,
about it.
but-
Think about it. Well, we're here to talk about your journey in TCGs, but also how you have leveled up to be one of the top Lorcana competitive players. And so let's start there. How did you actually get into competitive TCGs or TCGs in general? What was your path?
Man, as a wee lad, I learned from my older brother. So
Same here.
yeah, I think I was in 6th grade, potentially 6th grade, and we had in our local rec center a weekly event where if you won, I think you got 2 boosters of the newest set, or so. I mean, it was free to play, and just you had all the high schoolers were there, and it was my older brother and all his friends. So
cool.
yeah,
he
brought me along, and I learned the real rules of Magic the Gathering at the time because we had just had kitchen table rules, and then I decided, I like this, and I was pretty good at it, and before long I was beating said high schoolers pretty comfortably. I kind of took to it. I like puzzles, I like critical thinking challenges, and that's all card games are. So every turn's a puzzle. You get to think about what's coming next and do the math and statistics. And, as a 6th grader, I maybe didn't quite understand all that, but the intuition behind it I had, and it's a good time.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely a Lorcana podcast, but I feel like as a fellow young boy who loved Magic the Gathering and followed after my brother as well, what was your favorite Magic card?
Oh, man. So it became...
Or mechanic or something. Yeah.
Sure. It became Goblin Guide.
Goblin Guide. Okay.
But I started playing before Goblin Guide was printed.
And for those listening, what is Goblin Guide?
It's Daisy Duck. Yeah, it's
Daisy Duck.
actually the same card. I think if you put them in a Venn diagram, it's a circle. It's a very aggressive one-drop creature that has the haste, which Lorcana does not have. Rush, kind of, but you get to quest effectively instead of attack. And it has the ability that if your opponent turns a certain type of card off the top of their deck when you attack, they put it into their hand. So very similar to Daisy Duck. Give your opponent resources at the cost of a overstated-ish creature for its cost, or character, if we're talking Lorcana. So
Definitely essential as part of like an aggro strategy.
yes, very aggro.
Yeah. So let's go from Goblin Guide to Daisy Duck and back to Lorcana. Like, how did you actually move from just playing TCGs like Magic the Gathering to actually getting into Lorcana?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went from playing Magic to judging Magic, and that was a whole fun chapter. I really enjoyed doing that. It's kind of just a change of pace. And then took a very long break, as most Magic players do. And then, played online here and there, played Hearthstone, played lots of various TCGs just for fun, never anything competitively again. But then heard about a Disney card game, and, I had to try it. I'm like, this is going to be an incredible IP. If the game is good, like, the sky's the limit, so let's just see what happens. And I fell in love. I really like the mechanics. I like the pace of the games. I like, the path to victory. I like your options. It's just a really enjoyable format, and it's still new too. And I like, getting on the ground floor of anything is fun. You get to see it evolve, and so went to the first chapter 1, release events, did a draft, and I was like, man, because I'm a big limited player, love limited. Please give me limited anything, Lorcana. But kind of fell in love, and it was tough to get cards, so I didn't really start playing Constructed until probably end of set 2, beginning of set 3. I was around it. I had decks. We had like a fun league event I did for chapter 2 or set 2, and but yeah, I started kind of set 3 was when I started playing. I was like, oh, this is a fun game. I can actually get the product now. And started playing locals a lot. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely good. I loved the early days, like first chapter, second chapter. The league events, we both, I think, probably played in the same league where you would have like a starter deck and then you would add packs every week and build and do all of that, right?
I got the trophy somewhere over here. I won season 2.
Nice.
That is not surprising, TheDave. So before we get into deep strategy talk, and Andy's going to lead us into that, I want to go back to like a key moment in your journey. Every competitor has that match, that one tournament moment that really kind of defined them and their like career so far, which again, as you mentioned, we're only at the curtain call, basically. Or the curtain call's the end.
That's
we're
the
only
end.
at the curtain opening, where maybe 2 people come out and they do some like crowd work before
prologue.
The play. Yeah. The prologue. We're only at the prologue. But even in light of that, I'm sure there's been moments in tournaments or events so far in your Lorcana career. So can you walk us through a match or a tournament that really stands out so far? And what was at stake? How'd you navigate it?
Yeah. It's tough. I try to stay very even-keeled whenever possible, so I don't, like, no specific moment really feels like emotionally much different than the other ones. Except
no emotions, Dave.
Except day 2ing the first DLC.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Like finishing, going into the last round knowing, okay, I got a 2-0. And I think a draw was maybe a let it go. I don't remember. In my head, I was like, I'm 2-0ing this. Like, we're not, no shenanigans. Like, we're just going to win. And sitting down, and like, I think the best part of the match is I'm playing green steel in Atlanta, and my opponent, like, inks an emerald card, plays an amethyst card. I'm like, yes. I've already played the Amethyst Emerald match like twice that day already, and it was steamrolls both times. I've got Grab Your Swords in my deck. I've got the Morph Shift line. I got Tinkerbells. Like, I'm ready. So it was, that was an amazing moment. And I was like, all right, I just need to execute and play well. And I did. And it was a pretty quick. I was actually the second camera feature match, and we didn't get any camera time because they hadn't finished game 1 yet on match 1.
Oh my God.
I was like, what a problem.
It still
to
must have felt incredible being at that. Like, I was at that Atlanta event, and gosh, like, what a moment. Andy, you were there as well in Atlanta. So cool. I was in the final round and I did not 2-0. So I won once and didn't make day 2. But I can only imagine, like, you day 2, like, how do you then leave that and celebrate that moment, but also know, like, you have to prepare for the next day? How do you handle those types of moments?
It was, It was tough, but I'll say it wasn't too tough because I had put in a decent amount of work beforehand, just playing a lot of different decks. Just I do a lot of theory crafting. I think a lot about the game, probably way more than I actually play the game. I very much like to understand the whys behind things, and I think that's like way more important than reps. Won the match, I was like, okay, what do I do? And then I kind of just made the decision to just get dinner, get sleep, don't worry about it too much, get up early, and then kind of dive in, see what I'm up against. We got the deck list, but we got them, I feel like it was super late or maybe early even, like early in the AMs. I don't really remember. I don't think I had it when I went to bed. And then, woke up to the best news ever that I had. I was playing against the only Mufasa deck in the top 64. So
Hey, don't hate on Mufasa. Mufasa has gas.
Mufasa's amazing.
it was a really skilled pilot though. It was a magic, I don't know, content creator, I guess is what he is now. Pro, I don't know, Tandy, Todd Anderson. So he's big on the Star City circuit. So that was, it was a name that I recognized, which I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But ultimately, I looked at the deck list and I was like, okay, we can do this. So that was, yeah, I would say that whole situation, round 9 to round 10 in the Atlanta DLC were easily my most impactful Lorcana moment so far.
Awesome. I loved how you were just like very confident in your top match, and like that just because you put in the practice, you spent time. It's more about the theory crafting, and you felt ready for your day 2 match, and then just understanding that you put in the work, and just all you need is rest, eat, and you'll worry about it tomorrow.
Hey there, I know I'm interrupting a great conversation, and we'll get right back to that, but I wanted to take a moment to thank one of our partners, Viper Sleeves. Viper Sleeves was created by a player for players. It was someone that's been playing TCGs for over 20 years and said, I've tried the name brands, I've tried everything, they feel like they get degraded over time, and he wanted to create sleeves for players because he believes in the power of gaming and believes that it should come with great accessories. And so he developed Viper Sleeves a few years ago, and I can tell you, before we started partnering with them, I was obsessed with these sleeves. I reached out to Jim and said, hey Jim, I don't know what you're doing with your sleeves. I absolutely love them and would love to partner with you. Would you let us? And he said absolutely, because he believed in Purple Shadow's mission and wanted to be able to be a part of that. So we're grateful that we can offer you an exclusive discount at Quest Like a Pro with the code QuestLikeAPro. So if you go to Purple Shadow Gaming right now, or you click the link down in the description or the podcast show notes, you can go to purpleshadowgaming.com, take a look at the array of colors that we offer, and you can get a 15% discount on your order if you use code QuestLikeAPro. And if you order over $65 of sleeves, we'll even throw in free shipping. Again, we're so grateful for our partner Viper Sleeves, and we hope you'll try them out. They've been said to be some of the best sleeves. Our team loves them, and we hope you and know you will too. Let's get back to it.
So I'm gonna like slowly transition us into like the strategy and training. When you're preparing for a major tournament, where do you start? Is there like a type of deck that you lock in early? I know you mentioned like you like to play various decks, or do you try to focus on one and just like trying to refine it as best as you can?
Yeah, so I usually wind up playing a mid-rangey or aggro type style deck. And I wouldn't say it's because it's my preference. I would just say I usually feel like it gives me the most, like, gosh, what's the word? Like authority over the game. Like I get to make the most decisions. I'm in the driver's seat. I've got a lot. You've got the control aspects. You can decide when you need to up the tempo, when you need to slow it down. But that being said, I'm very happy to sit down and play a control deck, or if we ever get a combo deck, give me some combo.
Have you seen Ink Geyser? Have you seen Ink Geyser?
I've seen it, but one card does not make a combo. Well, I guess it does sometimes, but ad nauseum. So yeah, I definitely, it's tough to say, but I would say I don't usually pick a deck. I usually wind up playing that mid-range because I think it's a good test against the field. So as I'm doing testing, I get to see, okay, how does it fare against the slower decks? How does it fare against the faster decks? And then I learn a lot from what my opponent's doing. I see, oh, hey, that was sweet. Like, I really like that build of whatever it is they're playing. I'm going to jam that for the next local event. I'm going to play test that 10 or 15 games, see if I like it, tweak it. I'm definitely big into tweaking decks. not the most creative deck builder. Not ashamed to say it. Very much others in my life, thank goodness, put in the legwork for the creativity side of things. A shout out to Mark for my Atlanta deck. I appreciate you. But it's definitely a matter of just getting in some games, and I love watching games too. You're not even playing, like just people are jamming games. Like I am happy if there's 3 people playing, I'll be the person not playing. I'm very happy to just stand there and watch and observe and, talk about it when they're done, or if it's a testing session, slow people down and be like, hey, why are we doing this? Because you get to learn, I either get to learn from them, like what are they doing that I didn't think of? Like, oh, that is a great line, and I'm a silly head. Or it is not the best line, and they're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I am the silly head. So it's always a good situation, especially with the team, with the friends. Everybody in our local scenes, I feel like very friendly. Everyone wants to learn and get better. And, you can just see from set 2, set 3 to where we are now going into set 7, the average skill of the Lorcana player in our community has certainly gotten better, which I love to see.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. So with playtesting and theory crafting, I know you mentioned both of them. What are common mistakes players make when preparing that they should avoid?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think a huge mistake is like tunnel vision. I don't think it's ever really wise to just hone in and only really look at the one thing. And sometimes people even get so far as like, I really want to make this card work. And I think sometimes that can be an okay starting spot, but a lot of times people spend a ton of time on it. But I think while you're testing too, you can get tunnel vision on just what you're doing, right? You're really worried about your mechanics. You're worried about what's going on when every decision Lorcana kind of takes place in this, this like, there's two people playing in this game, and it's not just you. You have to consider what's going on your opponent's side of the board, because that's what dictates the best plays for you. And a lot of people, hey, this is the line, like I'm into the control deck, I'm doing, the thing, right? And then they go and they ink a card, and you're like, that should think about it, like why did they ink the Hiram? Why did they ink their Shark? Why did they ink their Manor? Just talk about the red-blue matchup. Nightmares. Why did they...
We love Sapphire cards on this podcast.
Yeah, so. That's and I think those really help you make the right decisions. Like I said, I played a lot of Emerald Steel, so all right, they're based on their inking decisions. Like I can make them discard one card right now, and they have 3 cards in their hand, and I'm hitting a good card. Like there's no way I'm not hitting a good card right now. Or I'm hitting a card that's probably important in the matchup. Maybe it's not just a generically good card, but it's good against me. And then knowing, okay, do I need to fight for the board right now? Do I need to, I got an Ursula. Am I going to double sing a strength and clear few things? Or am I going to double sing sudden chill and empty their hand? And that decision will win or lose you the game on that turn. You're going to play a bunch of more turns after, but if you make the wrong choice, then you're going to lose the game or you're going to win the game. So I think every decision in Lorcana is really, really important. And just making sure that you're not focusing too much on any one thing, I think is the thing that a lot of newer players do, that it can be tough to break that habit.
That's great advice.
How do you get better at that? Like, do you simulate those types of plays? Like, oh, if they ink the Hiram, I'm going to do A, B, and C, or like, what's kind of the preparation you do to be able to know what to do in those moments? Because they only happen in games, 1 every 7 or 8 or 12. And so simulating those through just playtesting or grinding without like being intentional can be really difficult. So like, how do you handle that? What is your approach?
Yeah, so a lot of that goes back to the theory crafting, understanding the matchups and understanding the important cards in the matchup. And I don't think you necessarily need to play those matchups to learn that. You can watch streams, you can go to your locals and between your matches, go watch somebody else play their matches, go to a big tournament. Like if you're there to learn, if you're there to get better, like there's basically never, if there's a game going on, go watch it, go see what's going on. And, even if they're making decisions you don't agree with, that's educational. Why don't you agree with it? So I think that's a huge part. I love, railbirding, or as they say, like, I think I get so much from that, especially if I can get behind both people. If I can scoot over here and see what's they're going on this hand and then run to the other side of the table and see what's going on that hand. I think there's just so much information to be gained. Obviously it helps if you're watching a higher caliber of player, because then they're going to likely make those decisions that you want to make and you get to see how it plays out. But you can intuitively usually see how it would have played out if you made the decisions you wanted to make. Like, okay, they're 2 cards less deep in their deck now, or, they didn't get to quest for the 6 lore that they got over the last 2 turns, or whatever it is. You can kind of extrapolate. And a lot of that comes with those specific skills come by playing a lot of card games, understanding the flow of games, tempo, not talking about Magic again, but who's the beatdown, the classic article, like understanding your role in the game. Those things all just kind of come together to help you when you encounter these novel situations that you've never played before. You're like, okay, we're on turn 4, turn 5, or we're on like turn 9, turn 10. Like they inked this card, they still have a card in their hand. Why? Right? And you can usually intuit the why if you have the knowledge to use, because there's only so many cards in the decks. There's only so much wiggle in the deck lists. You generally know what's going to be in your opponent's deck by the time you get to turn 3 or 4. Maybe they'll play something super spicy. But I think if you take all those things, like all the information, you kind of just put it together, you can usually puzzle out what's going on. And then playing a lot helps you get faster at that. Because, time is a resource in this game. So I think if you give anybody infinite time on their terms, they're going to play potentially a lot better. When people try to make decisions quickly, they don't consider everything, they don't. A big giveaway for a newer player is if you ask to look at their discard and they kind of look like, why? Like, why do you want to see it's in there? And that unlocks the whole conversation if they're ready for that conversation, but because it's very important what's already happened this game.
Yeah, I love the reminder because it's something I think that I've even rediscovered over the past maybe few months is what role are you playing in this game right here? Because you could be playing like a Sapphire control deck, right? But if you're in the mirror match, it's like, okay, what role am I playing right now in the mirror match? And like, where do I want to get? And how am I going to like pivot back at what point in time when the game changes? I know I did some coaching sessions with a very famous pro, and he was like, hey, you got to know how the momentum's going to change in this game, especially on the draw. Like you're going to have to figure out like what turn or what series of plays you're going to reposition the game back in your favor. Because for the majority of the first front half of this matchup, like you're not going to be in control, and you have to figure out how to regain control of the match at some point in time. And so the idea of like, what role am I playing and like, what am I rolling now? What is it going to look like when I switch? Because I'm not going to maybe maintain this role is very, very interesting. So it's a great reminder. Good call out.
Yeah, no, I love that you keep mentioning the why. I played someone last night, a friend, and after the game, we talked about like, I asked him, why did you ink this? Why did you ink that? Like, this is a good card for this matchup. And I think it's important for our viewers to know that you always want to ask why you're doing something or why they're doing something. So thank you for that. The next question is going to be, how do you feel competitive play in Lorcana is progressing? What do you want to see shift as we head into 2025? Maybe more locally ran events, maybe a limited series, sealed online tournament?
That one. A big limited player. New set just came out. Super stoked. Get to play all kinds of drafts and pre-release and all kinds of stuff. But
what is it about limited though? I know you well, so like I know you've been like, I'm all for limited all the time. Let's draft, pack rush, etc. But like, what do you love about it? Like, what's unique about that format that makes you like more intrigued to go pursue limited?
Yeah, it's like this like amazing mix of pure fundamentals with like a little bit of gamble. So
pack rush for keeps.
Dude, sign me up. Let's go. Gosh. But and then like the actual skill of drafting too is considering curve while you're drafting, inkables versus non-inkables, understanding, okay, well, I've got, this may be slightly worse evasive creatures better than this, even if this is a really efficient creature, just because I don't have anything evasive. So I'm just going to lose if they play, an evasive creature on turn 3 or 4 or something. But it's that. And then you get these like funky board states a lot of time. And I love puzzles. So I just look at every board state like it's a puzzle. And then you've got a puzzle with unknown information, how many cards are in their hand, what's in your hand. And kind of working out to an extent, like in Constructed, what do they have? You've seen what they've inked. You've seen the really important and limited when they think people in their inking cards or what cost are the cards they're inking. And you can often figure out, okay, well, they're going to be, clearly they're going into this larger ink costs in their hand, or they're going to go for like a 2-3 drops on turn 6 or something, depending on whatever's going on. I love just all those. So much information going on, I think, is the most part, like fun part for Limited, and it's different. Like every game's different. It's almost a singleton format. So even if you draft like awesome cards or open your sealed pool, like an example, I opened a Mushu in one of my release decks. I played 6 games, didn't see it once. Didn't play it, didn't see it, didn't alter it away. Not once did it enter my hand. And that just happens. So I think it's just all the aspects of pure fundamental, playing on curve, playing efficient creatures, combat math is like a huge part of Limited, and then in this game, especially understanding, okay, it's time to quest, like I know where I'm at right now. I know what's in my hand. I suspect I know what they're going to be playing. Like they're going to get some favorable trades for a turn or two, but then I'm at 20 lore and I've won the game, so who cares? So understanding when to flick the switch and when to start turning your gentleman sideways is really important.
No, I completely agree with you. As you know, I am a Limited player as well, so I would love to see that, and we could compete in it together.
Yeah, if we get a DLC, like a Limited, I don't think it's anytime soon, just because I really don't feel this game is designed for that format. And I think maybe they'll start taking into consideration eventually, but as of now, it's a fun format. It's a blast, and I think it's really good to help practice your fundamentals, your combat math, those types of things. But from like a competitive and skill level, if they just like, if we're talking new set, if they just play like a Fidget on turn 4 and then a Snow White or something, like you're just like, that's unfortunate.
That happens.
Yeah. Hopefully I've got a panic. I think that's like the only good not rare removal.
That's
it.
That's it.
No, I like that you mentioned the fundamentals, because I like playing Limited as well, because I play with a lot of players that are new or just casual players, and I'll help them. I'll be like, hey, this is the fundamentals. I just like, can I like give you a quick like tip? And they're like, oh, you're right. And I like you said, growing the community, getting everyone better. And I think that's what Draft and Limited, like the Limited series, can do.
Yeah, gosh, I hope we get there. Even if it's a local Limited series or something, it's tough because you said a lot of new players can get intimidated by it, because it is, it's like, it feels very, very random to a new player.
Yeah,
it's tough for them to see the skill side of it, and it is random, a lot more random to construct it. There's still very much a skill to it, so a lot of new players get intimidated, and it's got a higher like cost for entry too. A lot of people play casually, so they don't want to pay $20-$30 per event.
Sure.
Like for a local, like a quick casual event costing that much, if they're paying that, they're like, it's a set champ, right? It's like, no, this is pack per win.
That's it.
I do think the idea of, because so often in like local tournaments, it's like, oh, we got to the top 8, let's split. If we could do like top 8 draft,
team no split,
and just go for it. And it's like, hey, you got here. Great. You got to draw with your Sapphire decks, whatever. But like now you have to draft, and like it's a whole new game. It changes the dynamic. Like it's so
totally
fun.
Different skills.
Yeah.
Sign me up. I'm sold. Let's go.
Yes. Top 8 draft.
Purple Shadow Games.
Top 8 drafts.
Top 8 draft.
And we're playing first place gets 2K. No splits. Wow.
What I think would be best, and I think, is if you had sealed for Swiss into a draft for top 8. So that's kind of like the ideal. That's what it used to be back in like the PTQ days. So that's a pretty known tournament structure that I think works really well. 8 people drafted. That is the number for drafting. So it's a natural.
I like that.
Well, I know you said we have been playing a lot of Limited with Set 7, but given that most of the competitive format is core constructed, I'm curious your view on Set 7 and where you see the meta heading. Will Sapphire reign supreme, or is there a way to build against it or like evolve? Like, what's your early takes? It's like day 5. There's been like 3 tournaments, but what's your take?
Yeah, so admittedly, I've not shuffled up a single Set 7 constructed game yet, physical cards, but generally I've just looked at tournament results, right? Like we had the SSG recently, where Zan beat everybody up with the blue steel deck, so that was pretty sweet. Sapphire Steel.
Yeah.
But I also, through my team, like shout out to Ink Thieves, there's a lot of people who test a lot So even when I don't have the time necessarily to put into testing, I get to see what my teammates are up to, look at deck lists, watch games. We're in our Discord playing games all the time. Somebody's playing a game most of the time, it feels like. So, and just through talking to other competitive players, I think Sapphire Steel is definitely kind of the boogeyman right now. There's always one, Bucky was the boogeyman back in the day, and then Red Blue kind of felt like the boogeyman for set 6. But it's definitely beatable. I don't think it's this crazy over the top. And I'm very excited to see kind of what shakes out to help kind of stabilize the metagame. I feel like the format is kind of trending towards rock, paper, scissors, which every format does, so that's not a problem. But it can become very much the rock, the paper, the scissors get further away. And ideally in the favor, sometimes the rock can beat the paper. And you get issues when rock can never beat paper, and you get issues when rock absolutely can never lose to paper. So to try to get a kind of healthier format is always ideal. And I think there's enough tools now. We've got 7 sets worth of cards. I do think there will be tweaks done. The metagame will become fairly healthy. I've heard some doom and gloom out there, but I don't think there's too much weight to that yet. We'll see, right? If I don't know when the next big event is. Is it the CCS? Or I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's one this weekend. There's one pretty much every weekend in March.
Like good size?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Hunter Memorial is this weekend. And
okay, I hope that's big. That's a great event. If anybody hasn't looked into it, the Hunter Burton Memorial Open, it's great. So it was Magic for a while. They added Lorcana. Goes to a good cause. Well, I sort of always trend back a little bit towards Emerald Steel. Because I feel like it's a good check, You have to pass like the red blue check or the sapphire ruby check to pass the emerald steel check. And because those decks will pretty much always be around in some capacity. But I also like how many different ways there are to build it now. You can get the more aggressive lines, you can get the more slow controlling, discardy lines, a nice mix of the two. So I'm excited to see how it evolves. But right now, I think it's going to be a healthy form. That's my opinion. Definitely could be wrong. It could just be Sapphire Steel stomping on everybody for a while until something is done, if something is done. But I don't think that's true. I think it's going to be pretty healthy.
Yeah. I think even just the fact of playing the old Emerald Steel decks against some of the Sapphire decks, it does really well because those decks need every card in their hand, especially if they don't draw really well into Hirams, etc. And I think they're in some ways greedy because Emerald Steel got pushed out. And so having discard, whether it's Emerald Steel or yellow or lemon lime, I actually have found it really effective against the Sapphire decks. And so I think it's going to be interesting. Again, we'll see how it goes. Sure. Everything circles back. It is kind of this circular thing. One deck pushes another deck out of the format, which brings back another deck, which brings back another deck, which brings back. Yeah, it's just a circular thing, which I think is kind of fun and healthy throughout a 3-month season, And I think because of how much content's online, I think we over-index on stuff, and then it's no, we did this last season too. We kind of cycled through and then back. So yeah.
Yep. Then we cycle that red purple's dead, and then it's win, NACC.
Yep.
Somehow.
That's how it works.
Example though of metagame decisions, and just dodge your worst matchup, and you're gonna do great. That goes for any deck you can pick. If you don't ever have to play your worst matchup, you're going to do a lot better than if you did.
Well, we talked about how you made day 2s. So we all love those big wins, but every competitor also takes losses too. And those can be just as important, if not more, when it comes to growth. So can you talk about a tough loss you've had and what you took away from it?
Oh, man. I kind of talked about it earlier. I really try not to put too much weight into any one match. So I thank goodness don't have, I don't sit here and be like, wow, yeah, there was this time when this horrible thing happened and I'm, always going to remember it. But I will say, generally speaking, when I am to blame is much, much worse than if my opponent was extremely skillful and took a line that was unconventional and really successful, or if you altered and got 6 uninkables and you only play 12. Those things feel a lot worse. But rather those feel bad in the moment, but they're not your fault. But when you ink the wrong card, or you play around this card that when you think about it, well, no, it really wasn't likely for them to have it, and they don't. I think those are the toughest. So I've had a couple of those where, and they're usually. I haven't had any in single elimination rounds, thankfully. But I know, day 1 in Atlanta, for instance, I I don't even remember the why. I just know I didn't quest with a merfolk for some reason and lost the game in 19. And it was like a clean, and it was a quest where it didn't need to happen. And like I said, it ended up working out fine, but you know, in the moment, that probably hurt the most. You know, it was it was my only getting 2-0 of the day, like my only 0-2 of the day, and it should have absolutely been a 1-1, and it was 100% like my fault. You know, that feels the worst. And you know, thankfully, I kind of just move on. You know, a big part of it is just understanding and just I think you have to take ownership of it. And a lot of people have like they really want to blame other things. But when it is your fault, just like, nope, this is me, this is Dave. Let's not do it again. And I'm very good about learning from my mistakes. So I have never not quested with a merfolk ever again. Sometimes you don't want to quest with it.
No, I think it's definitely important to learn from our mistakes. I know this was your first DLC, Atlanta was. How did you handle those tournament nerves after that 0-2? Or in those high pressure moments? Because I know you had to 2-0. Like, how did you collect your thoughts?
Yeah, it was like, so I drew my round 8, and and then that's what led me to needing to win. So I had to win basically, I had to win and draw for 8 and 9. I think if I win 8, I can obviously, you know, do the intentional split thing round 9, but I didn't get to do that. So, yeah. So how did it? Gosh, I don't know. I just really kind of try to forget about it. Like forget about the emotion of it. You know, I want to remember it. I don't want to forget that I made this mistake because it's really important to learn from that. I think how you feel in the moment. You know, it's I just played card games for so long. I think is a huge help. Like if you're new to really just any kind of competitive gaming, I don't think it necessarily has to be a card game. I think that comes with experience, you know. I could not tell you how many times I've lost card games from mistakes that I've made. But I know in the high pressure Lorcana moments, it's not very many from mistakes. You know, obviously I lose plenty, right? Everybody loses frequently. You know, even the best players, they lose. You know, it's not always the same people in the top 8. Well, sometimes it is, but it's there is a lot of skill unless it's Swiss and your name is Zach Bivens, and then you just win and it's fine. So it's it's just I don't know. I think it's really important. Take the lessons away from these negative situations, like the whys, and to bring it back to what I was talking about earlier, but to breathe through and just kind of get through the negative emotions. You know, I think it's totally fine and you have to experience those emotions in the moment. You know, I was very upset with myself before the next round started. You know, was complaining to my friends, can't believe I did that. Like, how on earth did I do that? Like, you know, we only have 9 rounds. How am I going to mess one up? Like, but I think I 2-0'd my next round. I sat down and played, I think it was a Ruby Amethyst matchup, and made them discard lots of cards and felt great about myself. So,
Yeah, back,
exactly.
Right? No, I like that you mentioned that the experience, you know, losing comes with experience. And I think players have to know that. They have to know that it's just all through experience. We have to keep playing. We have to keep losing, fix our mistakes, letting go of that emotion. What advice would you give players who are struggling with like confidence? Because like this was my first TCG at like playing in person. I was always like an online player, so like this was scary for me, and I was just like, I'm gonna be with people. This is not what I do. I'm usually a Hearthstone, Gwen. I'm like online, and when I first started playing this game, I was just like, I'm gonna be the worst one here. I'm gonna be terrible at this game. So what advice would you give?
Yeah, gosh, do it. Go play. Go lose. Like and understand that we all did it and still do it. You know, you go to your locals and you see your person that wins all the time and they win, you know, a lot of the time, but it's not all the time. You know, and they're gonna lose games to people. And a huge part for me is when you lose a match, if you're playing against someone who you would consider knowledgeable, ask. You know, hey, what do you think in your opinion, like, how do you think I played? You know, like, do you think it was something? Do you see any lines that I could have taken that I didn't take? Was it just you beat me up because it's a bad matchup for me and you drew well, or I drew poorly, or, you know, there's always a reason the game is lost, and besides that your opponent reached 20 lore first. Helping to identify those lines, and if you can find people to help talk you through the matches, I think that's so valuable. And I suspect that at your local community, or if you find a nice online community, there's a lot of Discords out there. There's a lot of people ready to help new players. This Lorcana is so welcoming compared to every other TCG I've played or heard of playing. We just want everybody to get better, you know? I think everybody wants to help everybody else. You know, you get to the way, way top levels. Yeah, there's definitely some secrecy, and no, I'm not going to tell you my secret tech cards, but that's not what we're talking about. Just getting better and learning, everyone's ready to help you. And if you are the kind of person that wants to put resources in, there's a million metafies out there that you can sign up for. You know, you can get coaching with professional players. You can buy a deck list guide. And there's so many different things you can do if that's how you think you're going to learn, if you think that will help you. But I think ultimately, especially from like the confidence side, the emotional side, there's nothing that can really help you get through it more than experiencing it. There's not a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of mental prep you can do, except for maybe telling yourself, okay, we're going to go, and if I lose every match, that's okay. But I want to try to pick one or two things from each match I lost to learn and get better on. And if you kind of go in with a goal, like a very achievable goal that your opponent has nothing to do with, it feels a lot better when you're done because you've achieved something. I did the thing I said I was going to do, and take that as the win and move on and do, you know, 2 more things next time. And don't get too bogged down with the, well, I didn't win, so I'm the worst. I think there's a lot of emotional people. Sometimes the younger people too, you know, they just not as much, you know, not that I'm not young, but if it's their first card game and they don't have a lot of experience losing at things, you know, because a lot of people generally kind of steer towards doing what they're good at. You know, if they lose a lot, they sometimes don't want to keep doing that thing, so they don't. But I think Lorcana has a great community, and it's a healthy game, and the game itself is just good mechanics, in my opinion, that it's worth taking those losses, learning from them, and trying to make it fun, you know? If you're not having fun because you're losing, mix it up. Play a new deck next week, you know? Ask a friend to trade decks for the week. I love doing that. I would walk in any local event if someone said, hey, let's trade today. Done. Agreed. You know, unless I'm testing for like a specific event and I really like want to get some reps in, of course, then maybe not. But I love that idea. You know, you got to make it as fun as possible because it is a game. So if you treat it like a job, unless you're one of like 12 people in the world that can treat it like a job, I don't know. I think that's a recipe to be disappointed.
Great advice, Dave. And before we wrap up, we're going to hit you with some rapid fire questions. They're not puzzles, but you can treat them how you want them to be. And you can treat them like puzzles if you'd like. So no overthinking. First thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Favorite Disney Lorcana card, either to play or just for the artwork?
Ooh, probably Prince John. I get to make people...
Which Prince John?
One that's playable. What is it? Greediest of all, I think is his tagline. But yeah, 3-drop uninkable. When I do the thing I want to do, which is making you discard cards, I get to also draw cards. It has ward.
So
you
unfair.
Can't target it. It quests for 2. It's everything I want. That's such a fun card.
Emerald players, they love their like ward static
so
ability cards.
Value.
Next question. If you could design a new Lorcana ability, what would it be? Or maybe even something from Magic or other card games that you would love to see in Lorcana.
I've watched 1 or 2 of your Quest Like a Pro series, so I've seen this question and I still have no idea. If I had to guess, it would probably be something to provide more out of the hand interaction. Like we have actions, but like you play a character, they have rush, so maybe something that can do something else when it comes into play. Like it has an exert ability, but you can use that the turn it comes into play. And maybe not necessarily questing when it comes into play, but I think we'll probably see a quest rush of some equivalent at some point.
Yeah.
But something in that vein, I would think would be fun. Just give some more flexibility for out of the hand stuff.
Yeah, I love that. What's your go-to pre-game ritual or lucky charm? And it can be pre-game or pre-tournament.
Man, so if you know, you know, but you got to have fried chicken ice cream before, yeah, I know, don't question it, before day 1 of a DLC.
Fried chicken ice cream.
Yep, that's it. It's got a 100% prize card DLC effectiveness. Yeah, so
okay.
Don't quite. It's results.
We're not even going
It's
to question it.
results,
We're going to
yeah.
move on. Results. What's your ride or die sleeve color?
Ooh, so for a long time it was petrol dragon shields, but I got like 5 bad boxes in a row and it completely turned me off of Dragon Shield. Like, sorry, Dragon Shield. So, but color wise, I like the kind of darker tealy blue colors.
Okay.
But I will say this: if I only had to pick one for the rest of forever, it's black. Like, that's it.
Go wrong. Yeah. This was a question from the community. And so the question they wanted us to ask you was, what is the most exciting game of Pack Rush you've ever played? Because we know you're a fan of Pack Rush.
I do love Pack Rush. Most exciting game. So we play Pack Rush for keeps around these parts. So
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
yes.
I think I won a Minnie Mouse Enchanted, but I think it was already mine against Andy one time.
So winner take all. And the most exciting probably is when I lost and I was playing against a local, and thank goodness she opened the Enchanted in her pack, so I didn't feel like I had lost anything really. But I think just the stakes, right? The stakes are what make that the most fun. Because Pack Rushes are kind of goofy. So that's the most exciting in that way. But I can't remember if the question was best or most memorable. So most memorable is at the North American Challenge. I was already qualified, so I had a lot of free time on like Friday. So I did the sign up to like play Pack Rush with one of the developers. So I got to play with the developer for the card. What is the family song, the 7-cost Amber.
This is my family. Or
Look at my family, whatever it is. All I know is it has family, and
I think it's Look at My Family.
That's very important.
Yeah, This is My Family is the new one. Yeah.
Look at My Family, is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, It's important because the designer was very excited to tell me about how that was his first card. And then we play our Pack Rush game. I absolutely demolish him. I just tempo out like crazy. I mean, my packs are busted. And then we finish, and he's like, all right, let's look to see what you got, because they give you the packs after if you do like a Pack Rush with the developer. Like, it's Pack Rush for keeps, but you always get them. So he goes through, and he's looking through his pack, and his eyes light up like a kid on Christmas. And he stands up and holds the card and yells like, "This is my family," or "Look at this man," whatever. Like, he just yells. And because he had previously told me about the story about how when they were developing the card, it had an exclamation point at the end of family. So they would always yell it around the office when they were doing their testing or they're developing. So he was very excited. He signed it for me. It's in my binder. It's never getting traded. I'm not a person who likes to keep things, but that's worth keeping. He was just like, the look on his face and how excited he was to have that moment and have that card in his pack and get to sign it and give it away. It was a good time.
That's so cool. It reminds me of a moment I had where Luke and I, my son, played against a developer at one of the DLCs who developed Lucky Dime. And so they signed all of our Lucky Dimes and they said, "You're welcome. I designed that card," because that card is so good.
Yes.
True.
Yeah, it's so cool to be able to go to these events, though. Talk about the community and meet the developers. They're so excited about it, like the cards they do. I got to meet one of the designer of Whole New World that was at the North American Continentals.
The designer of the art.
I forget what their name was. The artist. That's what I meant. The artist.
Coney?
And I gave her a Chinese Whole New World, and she was like, "I've never seen one of these in Chinese yet." And she was so excited about it. And it was just like, it's so cool. Like, they're proud of being able to contribute to this game as well. And I think that's how everyone feels that's in and around the game, whether you're an artist, a developer, a casual player, a competitive player like you, Dave. It's pretty neat. So the final question we ask everybody is, and the answers have been quite amazing, so you know what we're about to ask. So
I'm not prepared for that. I'm prepared.
But if you could build your ultimate 5-character Disney team, who's making the cut?
Man, it's so tough because there's so many. So I would say in a vacuum, right? If we're not talking, like, I know you guys have mentioned like making like a Valorant team or whatever, like whatever our rivals, whatever the newest one is. But I just feel like there's so many overpowered characters in like Disney canon that like you just got to stack the team, right? Like, I'm going like Zeus, right? I'll put a god on my team. That seems pretty strong. Maybe Genie, but I know he's not like supposed to hurt people, so he's kind of sus. Elsa, she's on the team. That lady's powerful.
She's gas. Yeah.
She's going hard in the paint. Hercules, demigod, has god in the name, probably good. Stitch, he's kind of sweet, right? Can't swim, but besides that, he's pretty solid. And then if you like you need a healer, which maybe you don't, but you do, like Rapunzel. I feel like she's probably like pretty awesome, depending on which IP she's coming from. But I feel like she's a very healer focused in most of these movies and such. I don't know, how many is that? Is that
I feel
4?
like she could get. I feel like she could get like into it.
Yeah,
if she
that hair.
needed
As long as
to,
you don't cut
right?
her hair.
Uh,
She gets scrappy.
I think that was 5.
Maleficent is a honorable mention for sure. I don't know if that's 5 or 6, but I think
That was 6, but that's a solid
yeah,
team.
I think that's
yeah. So Andy, what's the recap of the team?
Hercules, Zeus, Elsa, Rapunzel, Stitch, and an honorable mention, Maleficent.
That's cool.
yeah. I think
I
that's
like it.
it.
Well,
I love Rapunzel. I love Rapunzel is in 2 of the 4 that we've already talked about.
I think
she's
so.
solid.
I
She's
think
always
so.
in there and she's on my team at least.
And if not Rapunzel, then like maybe Genie or something.
Yeah. Well, because Genie feels like the ultimate healer. If you could be like, "Hey, Genie, like heal me,"
Sure,
you know?
right? Yeah,
It's, like,
absolutely.
guaranteed, no matter what. Or like, please take me from here to there, or like whatever you need. Or like, hey, can
Make
you
me
bring me
indestructible.
Maui?
But then you
Well,
accidentally
yeah.
like use your third wish and he's gone. You're like,
That's
Yeah.
true.
I do feel like there's going to be like a 5v5 Disney IP game at some point.
Sure.
So,
I
based
play
on
that.
where things are going, yeah. How can we get more out of that IP? Well, Dave, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and just being here and ultimately being a cool guy, good people. That's part of our
Good people
community
confirmed?
here in Phoenix, Arizona. I think so, but again, we're going to let people vote with their comments,
Fair enough.
and we'll have to see.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, this was a blast, and I'm excited to see you guys around. It's nice to be a local. I was very excited to get the invite to come on the podcast. I
Absolutely.
definitely try hard, so it's nice to be recognized as a competitive player. But ultimately, the community is incredible. So happy to be here
Yeah.
and chat, and I'm sure
great.
we'll play many games in the future.
Absolutely. You'll crush my face as you did this past weekend. But before we go and let you go, Dave, where can people follow you or support you or learn even more about Ink Thieves?
Sure. Yeah.
How do people stay connected?
Definitely, I would say hop into the Ink Thieves Discord. It's an amazing community. Maybe we can get the link to it in the description for this.
Absolutely.
Definitely check us out there. That's where I'm going to be most accessible. I don't really have my own content. I don't put out too much, but I'm pretty active in that Discord. So I would love for you to pop in there, say hi, shoot me a message, and then keep an eye on just general Ink Thieves content too. You'll see my face or hear my voice at some point in the not so distant future, I'm sure. It's a great group of people, super fun, happy to be a part of the organization. And if you're a local, you can come out to our series. We've got a tournament, the State 48 Cup, last weekend in March here, local to Arizona. 5K on day 1, 1K on day 2, all guaranteed. Come out, hang out, come say hi.
Yep.
And come beat up some Ink Thieves Slayer. We'll have a few different Ink Thieves in the event, and we'll be offering bounties on us. So it's going to be an amazing time.
I love a good bounty.
Yeah. Very excited for that event. I'll definitely be there. Purple Shadow Gaming's partnering with the team
Excellent.
to be able to support that event as well. And so we're very excited. So definitely check out Ink Thieves. Check out Dave, TheDave, not a Dave, TheDave, and you'll definitely get to level up. And thanks everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Really helps us grow and bring on more great guests like TheDave. You can also join our Purple Shadow Gaming community, and you can find the link in the show notes. We've got deck guides, strategy content coming out just like this, and a community of players looking to level up. And real quick before we go, if you're serious about playing Lorcana at a high level, you need the best sleeves to protect your deck and keep your shuffling smooth. That's why we recommend Viper Sleeves, who's a great partner of Purple Shadow Gaming. I know, Dave, you've seen some Viper sleeves floating
I've
around.
seen them, used them, like them. I'll put that out there. They are nice sleeves. I haven't made the full switch yet, but every time I play with them,
We'll get you.
good time.
We'll get you. They're durable, and we've heard people say that they shuffle like butter. You can grab a set at purpleshadowgaming.com, and you can use the code QuestLikeAPro for 15% off as a thank you for being part of the PSG community. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Quest Like a Pro. What a fun conversation. We talk to Dave every week, like in person at our LGSs and all of that. But like to be here in this environment, like I learned a bunch that I hadn't heard before. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's always great. TheDave is amazing to play at locals. Me and him are both limited players, so any limited sealed event, I see him there. We never get in the same pod, though. We've never had the same pod. So we need to change that.
Conspiracy.
Something, yeah. Melee
Yeah.
doesn't want us together.
There you go. Melee. Don't get me started on Melee. Anyways, so what stood out to you from Dave's feedback and kind of guidance?
I think the one thing I liked that he talked about was to go lose. I think losing is really important. I think it helps us learn. We only get better from there, and it's critical in building your confidence to play at these high level tournaments like Dave. So I think just go out to your locals. I think like he kept recapping, the community is really friendly. I know ours is. We have the Dave there. I personally think he's good people.
He is good people. I was just giving him a hard time. He's definitely good people. I think for me, new things I learned, because I learned a lot from the Dave all the time. But the two new things that I learned was one, to remember what position you're currently in,
Mm,
like what role you're playing, and really almost take a step back and like give yourself an archetype. Like currently I'm in this role, and you could probably come up with a bunch of different characters for,
mhm,
whatever sticks for you. But you're like, okay, like we're in the middle of the game. I'm here. I'm going to need to move into a maybe more controlling position. And so I'm not going to ink this, or I'm going to prioritize this, because in 2 turns, I'm going to need to be prep and then switch to, basically defending my McDuck manners or whatever it is. Whereas right now, like I'm in like questing, I'm winning, but at some point this game's going to pivot and I need to remember that ahead of that. So that was the first thing. I think the second thing was just remembering to slow down enough to ask your opponent what they thought you could do better. And even as someone who like prides myself in like wanting to learn, etc., I think just in the moments, it's like, oh, we're at casual, we're like hanging out with the same people. You can so easily forget to do that. And I think just being like, hey, like I played Dave this past weekend, or the Dave this past weekend, and like he smashed me because he quested early enough in the turn sequence than I did, and I misplayed a card later on. But like I didn't ask him like, what was it about the board state that made you decide to start questing in that moment? I think I could have learned a lot from that. So those are the two things that stood out to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think it comes back to the why. I'm just always going back to why are they doing this? Like why did I do that? And the roles that we play are like control, aggressor, and we have to just always remember what hat we're wearing and in that scenario we're in. So yeah, I learned
Yeah,
a lot.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think I would end on, leaning into the why was his note about showing up to locals or any event for that matter and say, why am I here? What am I trying to learn? And how am I going to do that? And it can't be because my opponent didn't draw the cards, right? It was like, what's in your control
Mm-hmm.
that I can walk away with at the end of the night, at the end of the tournament, at the end of the weekend, at the end of a podcast just like this or a
Mm-hmm.
video? Like, what am I trying to walk away with, which justifies why I even did it? And being able to recap that is so important.
Really important. I agree.
Well, today we learned how to quest like the Dave. Maybe in the future it will be a Dave or another person, but I'm sure it will be another pro. So definitely stick with us with Quest Like a Pro until next time, where we learn how to quest like another pro.